Greetings, greetings, greetings. I'm super excited about this edition of the Moving Camp podcast, something that's near and dear to my heart. So we were going to just jump and dive right into it. Now, this podcast, more especially this episode, again, is always put on by the United Supreme Council for the Ancient Accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, Prince-Hall Affiliated, Northern Jurisdiction, USA. But with this episode specifically, it's something that I think is near and dear to my heart because we're going to be talking about reporting, which in turn is going to give you a bigger picture to some of the things we do. Now, I'm not the one doing the reporting, getting it in. I'm some of the ones filling it out, but we're going to have the man, the myth, the legend himself here join us in a second. And I have the utmost privilege in being able to introduce this person who's been a key help in our department and what we're doing, but also in chairing and pushing out this initiative. So I would like to bring on to the line one of the greats here that I've been able to work with, Sovereign Grand Inspector General Daniel R. Poole, who is our Grand Recording Secretary for the United Supreme Council for the Northern Jurisdiction here, the one that's being able to chair this one. So good evening, sir.
Good
Looking
evening.
looking awesome as always, right? Right. But I want to go ahead and just like introduce you, bring you on. And before we get started, just give us the overview because we always see the MADR, right? But what does it stand for? What is it? And then we'll jump into it a little bit more.
Well, first, thanks for having me tonight. And I definitely don't want to start this podcast without talking about the impact that this podcast has had on the United Supreme
Thank
Council.
you. Thank
Over
you.
700 subscribers to a private podcast, over 14,000 unique views. That's making a difference. That's getting the word out there. That's engaging our people through a different medium. You know, we go back from letters to ear, and then we started sending emails, and now we're doing podcasts, and the word's getting out. Just the other night, we was able to share in another podcast, a host webinar with some of our great political leaders, encouraging us to get out the vote and to see how to get out the vote. And that night, due to the help of your committee and the Southern jurisdiction, we had over 500 viewers on listening to our leaders tell us the importance of this election. So thank you for all you do. Thank you for all that your team does, because it's always a team effort. We're talking
Absolutely.
about team of teams. That's how we develop leaders, is when we have teams of teams. You have a team, Dr. Thomas has a team, there's a medical team, and these teams help make us as a Supreme Council better. So with that, I just want to say congratulations
Thank
for
you.
all the work that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank
So,
you.
so you said, tell me a little bit about the Making a Difference program.
Yes, sir.
So, how did it come about? So, let's kind of talk about that. So, each year, the Sovereign Grand Commander gets with his cabinet officers and he sends us out to different Orients. And then we report back. And we were coming and reporting back some of this great community service that was done. So then when we start talking about some of the stuff that's going on, and we're like, okay, if we add all this together, what kind of difference are we making? So you go to New York and you hear about the Grady Edge Read program. Oh, you got to see the impact they're having on the community there. Go over to Ohio. You go to Ohio and their Thanksgiving drives and their Feed the Homeless and their voter initiatives with Deputy Williams. I had the pleasure to go over to New Jersey with Deputy Oglesby, the hundreds of veterans that he's honoring, the veterans and then the scholarships that he gives out, just to count the numbers of dollars that they're working for. Went up to Michigan, the Cradle to College program. Wow, that's a hallmark program. We go to these different places, went over to Illinois and the Alzheimer's research. They're out there partnering with the Alzheimer's Association, Deputy Frierson and his Get Out the Vote campaigns. So we said, hey, we see these Orients doing these great things. And I didn't even put a number on the dollar of the scholarships that they're giving out. They're giving out scholarships quarterly, yearly, annually, and they're making a big impact on people's lives. So we said, how do we aggregate this? How do we show people the difference that we're making? You know, a lot of times the Masonic organization, we're inwardly focused. We don't do a lot of showing of what we do. But now we're in a time where we need to show what we do. We need people to see, hey, these guys make a difference. This is why they're at the table. Sovereign Grand Commander always talks about a seat at the table. That's why we've got a seat at the table, because the difference we make in the community. So that's what we said. We said, hey, the Sovereign Grand Commander says, hey, how can I aggregate this? How can I pull this together, this information? So when political leaders, when grant writers, when major organizations come to us and say, hey, we would love to help you. How do you make a difference? And then we can say, here's how we make a difference. We can say, look, you can go all the way to Washington State. Washington State does this. And we've got it aggregated of how we're doing this. So that's the reason why we got the impact that we're making. We have to tell our story. We know our story better than anybody else. And if you look at these Orients throughout the United Supreme Council Northern jurisdiction, they're making a difference. They're making an impact. They got boots on the ground. They're feeding the hungry. They're mentoring our young men and women. They are doing these things that impact a community.
No, and there's something that you put in there, the aggregate amount, because I think what happens is, and this is just my personal opinion, when you're a part of something that's bigger than you, it allows you to like move at a different pace, I think. And I just from hearing some of the things you're talking about in these other Orients, hopefully when people watch this podcast, they can realize like, hey, this is what they're a part of, and this is what their work is doing to be able to help out. Now, as we were talking about things with the community, I want to know like what were some of the key criteria for measuring community impact through this program? Like how's that work and like that system? Because I know there's things that we have with that reporting. So I want to make sure people are very aware of that as well.
So what we did, we started out our rollout of gathering data. So that's the first thing we did. We said, hey, we went to the Orients and they're still doing it. Reach back into your archives. Let's pull together the amount of scholarships you've given over the last 10, 20 years. Let's aggregate that let's get that data in there. So then we said, let's take a simple process of looking at one or two big bucket things, whether it's community service, scholarships, those kind of things, charitable donations, because we all know we can do that. And then when we stepped inside of the portal, we said, okay, well, there's other things that go with that. So let's step inside of that. So if you go one more step inside of the reporting program, you'll see where you can find some things that you're doing, whether it's help with the homeless, reading programs, mentor programs, get out the vote programs, donations to churches. So so we can get those numbers. And then we look at the next part that we sometimes take for granted. One of our most important assets, our time.
Mm.
How much time are we spending? When we go out to a community service project with 15 or 20 freighters, spending 4 hours a day, that's time. That's money. That's investment from our organization, from our people in making a difference inside a community. So we said, let's capture those things. Sometimes when we go out to events, if you remember back in Colorado, we went out to feed the homeless in the city of Colorado. Well, it costs money to do that. How much money did we put up to do that? So our deputy from Colorado, those guys sponsored the function of the meal for that day. So that was money. How much did that cost? These are all the things that organizations do to capture how they make a difference, how to tell their story.
Mm. And I think that's important. And hopefully people can notice that you keep talking about telling our story. Because what I've learned, like right now, I'm the commander in chief of my consistory, and no one else can tell our story better than we can, right? So when I talk to the older members and they walk me through in these grand inspector generals and sovereign grand inspector generals, it's a sense of pride that you get. And that's kind of what I'm feeling from you right now. And that's something that's awesome to be a part of. And as we're getting this aggregate data, like what are some of the things that you do to ensure that there's some accuracy and consistency in the data collection between the different valleys and orients and things of that nature?
So what the team thought about, we got a team of analysts that look at our data, and that's their job is they look at the data, and then we can slice it and dice it and pull it together at the proper place, add the right amounts of money. But what we try to do is we try to look for those mistakes that may have been made, key punch. So we look at those kind of errors. We try to make it simple to start with. We wanted to make it simple, and then we'll allow our data analysts to then look at the data. They'll be able to put the number in for the the amount of hours that you worked and those things. So that's the way we try to do it. And our deputies have been awesome with helping us do this. They've been able to reach back in their archives and find their minutes of where they've donated these things. And Deputy Williams out of Ohio, he captures his on Facebook. He wants every community service thing he wants on Facebook, so he's got a record of it. So
Mhm.
those are some little things that we do there to capture our data and get the accuracy there. We've got two great guys. We've got Grand Inspector General Gardner Torrance out of the Far East, and we also got Sovereign Grand Inspector General Mike Wiggins out of New Jersey that are looking at the data. They're gathering that data together and see how the best way we can present it and the information for it.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. And then Branch Manager General or Past Grand Master Torrance, when you see this, sir, hello, how you doing? He sends me some positive texts each day, and I appreciate him for that. Um, but one thing too, I was looking. So as you're getting this data, I'm kind of curious on as you guys are seeing and collecting it, like how this program like influence, like what are the future programs we do? Like how is this guiding us for the future as well? Because I think people just think it's just looking in the past, but I don't believe so. I think I've talked to you long enough to know that you're thinking 5 moves ahead. So I just want to see kind of what your opinion is on that.
So whenever you speak to other organizations, and there's many organizations that would like to help support our organization, make a difference in our community. Sometimes they just don't have the bandwidth, but they may have the financial width to help us. And they want to know that they're contributing to a worthy cause. And that worthy cause comes from our resting on our laurels of what we've done. The first thing I'm so proud of when we start talking about how do we make a difference is look at the Scottish Rite House and the Scottish Rite Tower
Mm.
in downtown Philadelphia. All I can say is, wow, every time I get the privilege to go down there and see those two buildings that we have that make a difference in people's life, housing for them, affordable housing for them, that makes a difference. So those are the kind of things we're looking at of showing what we're doing. When we sit down with our elected officials, when we sit down with other philanthropy organizations, and they ask what we do, we don't have to guess. We can share with you what we do. And when we come to your state, we're going to show you the impact that we had on your state when we came there. When we show up to have a Supreme Council, whether in Philadelphia or we just left Milwaukee, going back to Ohio, Detroit, those places, we make a difference when we show up. Not only through our community service that we do during the event, because the Sovereign Grand Commander said we're never going into a city again and they're not knowing we're there. And he's kept to his word on that.
Mm.
But when we go there, we're still making a difference. We're affecting their economy. People have jobs through that weekend. Some people don't usually work during that weekend. Now they have somewhere to work that weekend. These are the things that we're doing. We're showing the world what we already know. There's nothing that makes me more prouder than telling about Prince Hall Masonry and what Prince Hall Masonry does for this world. If there were more Prince Hall Masons in this world, it'd be a lot better place because we make a difference in the world.
No, man, I love that. And some tangible things that you talked about was I attended as a Sublime Prince. So hopefully everybody's watching that. I went to United Supreme Council, enjoyed my time, and I got to see the William Mike Stark class put on and get the renaming and then do the I think it was a food pantry too as well. So again, I think that's what you're talking about, like future things we can think about how we can aggregate and put our pool our sources together. Because like you said, there might be some organizations that don't have the time, but if they know we're coming to the city, we'll donate money because we know that this money is going to be used to the utmost ability and it's going to be something that's going to be impactful for the community. So I think this is very important for us to be able to notate. And then, because we talked about a lot of activities, by any chance, don't want to throw you on the spot here, but do you have a idea of either like hours or money or time or like a number of what we've collected so far of kind of like our story, just to kind of put it out there?
Yeah, over 1,239 students have received scholarships from
Oh,
us,
wow.
$1.3 million in scholarships. Our social justice and civic engagement initiatives, They've had over 10,000 contacts in voter registration, over 3,700 volunteer hours. I already spoke to you about the Scottish Rite House and the Scottish Rite Tower. We have $1.7 million in just charitable donations we've made. That's just
Mm,
money that we've given. That's not time. That's just
mm,
money we've given. 7,180. See how I'm able to add some context, some
mm,
granularity, some clarity of what we're
mm,
doing. So these are the things that we're doing. And this database is being updated every day.
mm.
Every day. You ought to see the work that's going out there to get out the vote initiatives right now. All those states, every state in this Orient, Sovereign Grand Commander Bazemore has commissioned those deputies to be involved, and they are involved. We're talking about from Nebraska to Washington State to Rhode Island to Connecticut. These our brothers are involved and engaged in making a difference.
No, that's awesome. So I should have known I was going to catch you off guard. I knew I was like, hey, he's going to have that information ready, right? But I think as people watch this and go back, I really, really be excited because understanding that when you pay your dues and you're active, this is contributing to some of the operating costs of
Yeah.
this type of program that's going in. And I think if people don't realize tangibly what their money is going towards, they can lose engagement. So please, while you guys watch this podcast, understand that being financial is one beneficial, but two, being active, engaged, like you see the kind of impact that you're going to be making. A wise man told me, many hands make for light work, right? So just imagine that. Now I have to ask from with your crystal ball, what you're looking at, what is the future hold of this program of like kind of like where do you see it going? What would be some of the things that you want to be able to accomplish here with it like down the road here for us?
So I think what you have to think, what we have to think about on this is being data driven. What is our data acumen? How are we looking to take the data and use it for our good? To take the data to share, to take the data to make decisions. So this is all part of gathering data. This data here is community service data, community engagement data, but this data we can split it up
Mhm.
when somebody from Nebraska or somebody from Iowa goes and speaks to their local leaders, they can take a fact sheet and
Mhm.
show exactly what they're doing in Iowa. They can show exactly what they're doing in another state, but they can also show it in the aggregate. So these are the things that we have, and it go back to the string on this thing is telling our story. So when we go back to those things in the future, we want to talk about looking at data on everything, looking at membership data, looking at viewership data on our podcast, who's watching our podcast, who's not. How can we engage them more? How can we engage our members more, make it easier for them? Who pays, who's financial on time, who's not? Are they some help? It's all about data acumen. It's about using data to make good decisions for the United Supreme Council.
Mm, I love that. In the business that I work in mortgages, right? And so the more data points we have, we can make decisions that would be able to best help our clients. And from what I'm hearing is we're leveraging this data so that we know in real time what things we're doing well, what things we need to be able to improve on too as well. So now to wrap it up, I want people to understand so if they wanted to go ahead and submit, because I know there's a couple things we sent out, where would they go onto the website? Like what would they need to do to make sure to like look at being able to make sure they're reporting? Because at the end of this podcast, we want everybody to be excited to be able to report what they're doing in their values and their orients. So we want people to put in more and more data so we can get a better accurate information. So how would they go about doing that for us?
So you would go to our website, and we've got two different links, one for our Golden Circle and one for our freighters. You go in that link and it's self-explanatory.
Mm.
Two or three clicks, you can report what you've done. Now, you can report stuff you've done yourself.
Oh.
I've reported stuff I've done this last week. It was just me, one
Mm,
person, 1 hour, making a difference
mm,
somewhere. So, yes, you can easily go in there. Each individual can do it. The major projects you'll coordinate with your consistories and your orients, because you want one report in there. Because sometimes we'll see two reports and we have to clear out one report because
mm,
it's the exact same report. That goes back to your accuracy part you talked about.
mm, mm.
But those are some of the things we do. We tried to make it simple, we tried to make it easy, and it doesn't take a lot of time.
No, I think that's the biggest one because if you can do it really quickly, make it simple. And again, we can go onto our website. At the end of this podcast, I'm gonna have the link to be able to show. So it'll be in the description in the YouTube channel, as well as at the end of this podcast, you're gonna be able to see it. So for the members that are going on to this now, you can just share this with every frater, every loyal lady, and just get them to start clicking and uploading because we want more data. That's what Illustrious Poole is telling us. He wants to be inundated with any and everything, like you said, even if it's 1 hour. And before I let you go here, Illustrious Pool, is there anything else that you want to be able to add to them and let them know about this phenomenal program that we're working for? 'Cause especially during this election season, I think it's very, very important for us to be able to get some of these things accurate because from my opinion, it's going to leverage us in the future to say, hey, if when we want to do something or we're asking for funds to help out our communities that are in need, I think this program does exactly that for us.
Yeah, thank you. I think I think it goes to what you just said. Each individual person, everything counts. As we talk about, every vote counts, every community service hour counts. And that's why we tried to boil it down to a level where the individual can do wherever he's volunteered, he or she volunteer at their church, at their synagogue, wherever they may be volunteering at, that they can go and put those hours in. Because when I do something, whether I'm doing it personally or for my work, I'm still a Scottish Rite Mason in the Northern jurisdiction. And so I'm doing that. People know who I am. So I'm going to report what I do. So those things, again, I love the point that you drew out when you said this helps show what their money goes to. And it does, and it helps fund these things. You look at the online raffle that we're working on now for the sensory room at the Prince Hall School. I mean, I can go on and on about the many things that our United Supreme Council does in communities. I can start naming communities across the northern jurisdiction where we're having an impact, where we're the Get Out the Vote initiative that was going on out in Washington State. I didn't even speak about what our two deputies overseas are doing. Now, these gentlemen, Deputy Bush and Deputy Johns over in Europe and the Far East, these guys have to report this stuff quarterly to the base commanders
Mm,
to say how they're making a difference on their base. And this was before our program. So
right.
they have to earn their keep in their communities. So that's what we're going to do. So we're looking to continue to build this and continue to make a difference.
No, well, that's awesome and awesome. And again, Illustrious Pool, I thank you so much for everything that you've done for us and everything that you're going through, as well as driving this initiative. And I know, like you said, it's a team here aspect. So again, I Now, appreciate again,
Yeah.
I want to be very crystal clear to communicate to everyone, whether you are a frater or a loyal lady. At the end of this podcast, is going to have the link, and we're going to show a little quick description and showing where you can go to fill out your information. But we have to make sure they're doing this, especially when this comes out. This is going to be right before election. And I know we're doing a lot of boots on the ground to get the job done. So make sure you report that too as well, because I want to paint a picture for you. Because speaking with Illustrious Pool and a couple other people, what if we show how much Prince Hall Scottish Rite Masonry does in the northern jurisdiction? And what if we go to our legislators and say, hey, we know you have grant money. If you give grant money to this Orient, to this valley, to this jurisdiction, this is where it's going to go. Imagine a person that looks like you, that came from where you came from. You have the ability to provide for them something that wasn't provided for you or do something even better. So again, this reporting isn't something that's very nonsensical. It's not something that's a waste of time. I'm very passionate about this because I've seen the back end results of when you can bring data plus a great storytelling and an engaged group of individuals, you will make a change. So again, as you see this, this is going to kick off November. This will be right before elections. Go vote if you haven't. If you need help or assistance, reach out to your deputy, reach out to somebody in a consistory because we're here to help. That's what we're here to do. And to the next time, I hope you guys have a fantastic day. Thank you.